Hi, I'm Ryan Walker, pitcher with the Giants.
Hi, I'm J.P. Martinez, assistant pitching coach with the Giants, and this is how we train.
The development, I don't know, is kind of interesting. Every year I feel like it changes. Grip changes, hand position changes, but I feel like I finally got to a consistent spot this year. I think the biggest development for this year to make it like a sweeper pitch now and more consistent is all hand placement. I used to think like, oh, I really need to get under the ball and kind of like throw it like a frisbee almost. And I tried that in game and everything, and it's like either really inconsistent or it's like 9-inch horizontal, and it's like, I don't know where that comes from. But once I realized that it's more so like getting the hand out here and kind of pulling down this way, that's when I started to notice the big horizontal change. And it makes it a lot easier to control as well because you're not going here. So like, I feel like here it gets really inconsistent because it slips out. And that's when you get popped out like stuff and they can see it out of your hand a lot easier. This way it feels more like a fastball type. So I can start it in different places a lot easier and get more run to the glove side and a lot less backed up sliders.
I mean, you should definitely hit on stride angle, right?
Yeah, true.
Before you made it to the big leagues last year, somebody said, hey, send us over the pick to third guy, because you would stride so far across your body. You always were pretty cross body, but you really started to throw harder, started to get a lot more break on your slider when you were able to kind of like work into that front hip a little bit more.
Yeah.
Do you remember telling me about that PT that you went to?
Yeah, PT in Scottsdale, Dan Swinsko, really taught me how to use this cross-body connection style. Basically train my right shoulder that works with my left leg and vice versa. Once I started doing those sandbag exercises, my land leg actually got a lot stronger too, which he said is a big focal point. It takes a lot of pressure off the elbow. Yeah. Once I started doing all that, my body for some reason said, oh, this is how we're supposed to work, you know? And then the velo spiked, my soreness went down. Yeah. I didn't get like a lot of soreness after all the outings because of how efficient my body moved, and it was a big step in my career. So these sandbag exercises I do are, it's only like a 20-pound sandbag. Like you get into like this bridge position on your back, you get in a bridge position. I like to leave my land leg down and then raise my right leg. And I take it up top like this, and I bring it down here, and then I bring it across up. And it works really well with the ab works, and teaching your body like neurologically, it's like this is working with this. I usually do like 2 sets on this leg, more sets on the land leg than I do on the drive leg, just because I've realized how much stress that this can take and how much stress it takes off the elbow. It's been awesome. And then in turn with my slider, like you said, like once those are connected, the slider comes into play, and I can just rip it. Yeah. And then going on to stride angle, obviously, like I remember last year when my stride angle was like I was almost too straight down the mound. Right. Remember, like I was too open. Yeah. Velo went down, everything else went down. It's just kind of funny how like I needed to get more closed off to gain more velo.
Yeah, half the battle for you is just getting your lower half in place so that you can rotate well. And you're so rotational. That's what leads to the big amplitude slider and the big amplitude sinker, just like how much they move. The thing that we've talked about probably the most is hitting your move. Right? So like when you get gathered on your backside and when that leg comes up in that kind of scoopy way at the top, when you miss that, you kind of miss the timing of rotation. Yeah. But when you hit your move, everything's pretty sharp and pretty crisp shape-wise, and then where you need it to go. Yeah,
I noticed I start leaning forward if I don't hit that move, and then the slider just gets all funky. Yep. But good cues we learned this year. That's really helped my game. Like as I come up, you'll see like it's almost like a hitch where I'll come up here and then I'll hitch a little bit, and then that's kind of like my starting point to start going down the mound. Sometimes I don't get that. Sometimes I go here and I'm already leaking, and then the arm just flails out, and then the slider just doesn't do what we need it to do.
Yeah, you see so many guys in the big leagues, hitters and pitchers, that have some maybe weird kind of quirk to their delivery. And I would say in 80 or 90% of those cases, that is just a timing mechanism for the pitcher, right? And for you, it's that little kind of closed off hitch, like you said at the top. When you miss that move, your timing's a little off, and you'll spray the ball, or the shapes won't exactly be the same. But when you hit it, everything's pretty good.
All right. Always on the first base side. Can never be on the third base side. I would fall off the mound half the time. Biggest thing, going here and feeling that hip kind of hitch up here, and then riding my leg down to about this point right here. I usually walk it off from the edge of the rubber here. Actually, you taught me this. It's like 4 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then halfway through, that should be about my landing point, essentially, just to stay consistent. So we're here, and then as I'm coming through, understanding I'm not a side armor. I'm definitely more of a 3/4 type style. So feeling like another JP reference, a seat belt, putting on a seat belt. So when I get here, I'm trying to get here, not trying to get around it and be too long with it.
There's obviously some visual like redirection that happens for the hitter. Your center of mass is going that way, but then the ball is hid for so long and then it's coming back across the plate. So a lot of these pitches start behind right-handed hitters, or they start in a place where the left-handed hitter thinks it's going to move into them and it moves away from them. Hitters have to make a decision on if they're going to swing or not about halfway or probably 30 feet into the ball flight. And his stuff has a tendency to move after that. So you'll see some really ugly swings because they're tracking, and then they can't really do it because the ball's changing trajectory after the decision point. I think there's some outlier kind of horizontal approach angle from how far out his hand gets. You might think he's going to be sidearm, but then the ball's a tick higher than you might think, and that slider is going to move going down the whole way instead of popping out and then going down afterwards. A lot of uniqueness to Ryan's delivery, obviously, and then the shapes are loud and they're tough to deal with.
I know in college I was maybe like 2 or 3 inches from being straight down the mound, so not a ton. And then as years progressed, I just started to go out and out and out just naturally. It was never really a decision to throw like that. I didn't really recognize it till 21. After that season, that's when I really decided how can I train with this, and met my PT, and then started training towards like how I throw. There's a lot of things you need to be good at in terms of strength and mobility. It's pretty strenuous on the body. Once I figured that out, again, that's where the velo came and the efficiency came. In the beginning, I found the velo in 22, and when I started the year there in AA, I all of a sudden saw myself throwing 97. So I was like, oh, I'm a fastball guy now. I can just blow by guys, you know? That wasn't the case. That's never the case. I really had to learn how to use that. It was kind of tough in the beginning. I'm not used to this velo, so like I'm missing up a lot, or I'm spiking fastballs. And so that was kind of my year to like really hone down on it and figure out, all right, like now that I have this, how can I use it and spot it up where I need to, and just like continue to stay the pitcher I used to be, but with the velo. And then once I figured that out, I mean, coming into 2023, I could see how much that really helped me. Obviously, when you have higher velo, you have, a little bit more of a margin for error, like have a little bit more to play with, especially when you have 2 pitches. Right. When I was throwing 90, 92, it's like, nah, I gotta be perfect. Like, right. Things have to be on the corners. Like, you miss middle with 90, I mean, it's gonna be a tough game for you. So that kind of helped out a lot.
Yeah, I mean, not only is it, big velo, big horizontal break, some measure of seam effects, which is really late movement, but it's also pretty unique leading up to release in terms of the kick and the crossbody stride. So all that combined makes it super tough on righties, and super tough on lefties, I think. Have you stuck with the 2-seam, or have you stayed with the 1-seam that you came up with?
I'm back on the typical 2-seam. I came up in 23, I came up throwing a no-seam, which is basically just in the middle of the horseshoe right here. Yeah. I didn't like the feel of seams on my fingers. It made me, it gave some weird mental thing in my head that like I couldn't control it if I touched seams. It was weird. We moved it to more of a traditional 2-seam. I still don't really touch seams. I don't like to go on the seam, but I'm in the middle where I can feel the seams on the outsides. With the no-seam, the consistency wasn't really there. Horizontal was fine, but sometimes I'd cut the ball, or sometimes I'd throw just like almost like a 4-seam with it. So once we got here, the consistency of the horizontal movement stayed. I don't cut it anymore, and yeah, that's a big change too. So this is why I need to talk to you. I always forget these things. I forget these little things that moved on.
The version of you that came up last year in May, it was a pretty good version, and so just these little small tweaks that we've made. We haven't made any like major wholesale changes to what you came up with. It's just been more of like kind of trying to peel some stuff away to help you stay the best version of yourself.
With the unique pitching style, you don't want to change too much because it's just so different from others, I feel like. So when you start changing too much, I feel like you would lose yourself a little bit. So right. I appreciate the small changes that made an even bigger impact.
Ryan's sweeper gets up to 15 or 20 inches of glove side horizontal break, and then he gets about 15 to 20 inches of arm side horizontal break on his fastball. So if you take the batter's box stripes and you start the pitches as balls, they end up as strikes. And if you start them as strikes, they end up as balls. So the hitters can't really sit on one or the other. Obviously the velo is super tough to deal with from both sides of the plate. But he's basically either funneling both pitches to the middle or starting both pitches middle and they're ending up off. That makes it really tough for hitters to make swing decisions.
You have a hitter who, maybe struggles with outside heaters or whatever, so you're just pounding the outside with that two-seam. It's fun to be able to start that slider off of that. Yeah. And that's when you see those crazy swings that go from the outside of the plate into the left-handed batter's box, and that tunneling is what obviously causes them to swing at that because maybe they're expecting two-seam, they don't know. And along with that helps that I can throw each pitch in any count. I'm not afraid to throw a 3-2 slider if needed. So that was my favorite part about Oakland when we got the bases loaded there. 3-2, didn't even think twice about throwing a slider there.
I think that was the first time we saw some big emotion from you after getting out of an inning, right?
Yeah,
so a couple fist pumps, a ball grab.
Doesn't come very often. This being in this position, this new role, really brings it out a lot more. It's a lot more intense. Snell's been talking to me for a while what the celebration should be. I wasn't planning on doing anything. He was begging me to do that celebration. It's the shower celebration. You turn on the showers and you're sitting under, basically saying like, let's take it to the house, game's over. Once Lamont fielded that ball and we got the final out, it was rattling in my head. It's like, all right, I gotta do it for the boys. So I went out and did it. I didn't expect it to blow up necessarily, I just did it for the boys. Now that I pulled it out, I guess that's gotta be the celebration for the rest of the year at least. In reality, I just didn't want to change anything. When you look at these different roles and you try and change something, that's when you start thinking too much. That's when you start not being who you are. If I was opening a game, I'm treating it like any other inning, whether it's the 7th, 6th, 9th, whatever. I'm just trying to get guys out, I'm not thinking in my head like I might have the last 2 innings, so let's hold back, nothing like that.
Never a gripe, never a complaint, just yak and go. I've definitely seen you graduate this year to somebody that is comfortable in the heat of the moment. You're able to flip the switch now a little bit more than you were able to last year. Yeah. It's really fun to be able to see you kind of graduate into that role that we've all known that you could be in the last 18 months or so. So that's been super fun.
And so going into that first one, I was so nervous. I kind of brought it back to, like I said, my debut again and my thought process on that. I know I'm going to be nervous. I know there's going to be something extra to this inning, but just control it while you're out there, control your breathing, and do your job. Just because it's the 9th doesn't mean I have to go out there and try and throw harder or try and strike everybody out. I'm just going to continue to be aggressive in the zone, trust my stuff like I have been. So.
Yeah. And you've spent a lot of time with Tay and Ty Rogers as well. Tay just hit his 500th appearance the other day. He's former closer, has a bunch of saves under his belt.
They're great. I mean, you can't ask for any better veterans to be around like them. Learning from Tay on the closer role, one of the biggest things he said to me was like, don't look at the score until the 7th or 8th inning. Because when he was telling me how when he was a closer, like his biggest anticipation and anxiety was watching the score and being like, all right, it's close. And it's like the 3rd inning. He said someone told him the same thing, and once he really realized that, didn't pay attention much to the score, and didn't really realize it until 7th or 8th, and he was able to really control his anxiety and nerves going into the game. So that was a huge thing to hear from him, and and learning from Ty to just how to really go about my business, like reserving your energy and not needing to throw 300 throws down here before the game and all that stuff. Like, they've been a huge help in my career already.
I think first and foremost, the stuff really jumps out, and just how well it's performed, right? Even though it's a 2-pitch mix, it's been a really dominant 2-pitch mix. So you've now put up numbers for over a year, all of last year, and then 2/3 of this year. On top of that, I think the temperament, just the calm, cool, collected, that gave us all a lot of confidence that as soon as you got a chance to take down this role, that you'd really excel in it.
It goes back to not being afraid to put your stuff in the zone. Biggest thing, get ahead, take the advantage while you have it.
We look at first pitch strikes and count leverage as first downs. Like, if you move the ball enough in the right direction, you'll end up in the red zone. You don't need to do anything crazy in the red zone. You really just need to kind of like force the issue. And that's something that you've done a great job at, right? You're not scared to be in the zone early in the count. You do get some early count outs, and when you don't, you end up 0-2, 1-2, and you definitely have the stuff to polish those guys to finish those at bats. So spent a lot of time getting to know you when you came up with a little bit of a hands-off approach because you were so unique. We got to learn kind of what the best version looks like, what that stride angle looks like, where your slot is, what the shapes of the pitches look like. We have a lot of help in both those departments, right? We have our Hawkeye biomechanists that keep an eye on the smallest changes in his delivery. We have our post-game TrackMan and Hawkeye reports on pitch shape, so we can know if anything's happening outside the norm pretty quickly. And then, we have me and Brian and G, 3 pretty qualified pitching coaches on the staff to make sure that Ryan's the best version of himself every time he takes the bump. So it's been really fun to watch. Feel pretty happy that things have gone really well.
Awesome. Nice.